Good morning everyone, welcome to another podcast. I'm out on the river chasing grayling obviously this morning with the trout season now finished. It's a cracking autumn day, bright sunshine, but there's plenty of shadow on the river, and the leaves are kind of half turned golden brown, but not actually fallen too much yet, so there's not too many leaves in the river, because that's sometimes a real issue with autumn fishing, when you get all those leaves coming down the river. But it really is a cracking morning. Not too cold. I don't know how it's going to fish, to be fair, today. We've had a lot of rain recently. In fact, I was expecting it to be a lot higher when it came down. It's not high at all, so it's going to be an interesting day. It could be one of those all or nothing days. I decided to go for a czech nymph. So it's a double czech nymph actually. I've got the super diving shrimp on the point, nice and heavy, it'll get right down, and then a czech tan bug on a little dropper just above it. I'm just going to run through some of these deeper, faster runs, hopefully find a few grayling. Always a bit trickier at this time of year. We've not had the frosts yet, so once it gets really cold they tend to shoal up in distinct pools, and it's a bit easier. But at the minute I think they still probably spread about a bit, so we'll have a little go, see how we get on. I'm just going to get myself into position in this first pool. The river's actually split in two here. There's a big island in the middle and the river goes round each side, and so actually the river, it's almost like a little separate streamy bit here as it comes around the island, and it's only 10-15 feet across, but it's a lovely run, and as far as I remember it's quite deep as well. So I'll just get to the bottom of this and then I'll czech nymph my way up. I've not got a specialist czech nymphing outfit today. I've just got my 9-foot 4-weight river rod, just in case I ended up doing anything different. 4 weights, and then I've got about 8 or 9 feet of just straight through 5-pound copolymer as a leader, 2 or 3 feet of fly line out the tip of the rod, and then as usual I've got my high-vis braided loop and I've greased it up. There's a distinct bubble stream running down the far side of the stream, so that's where I'm going to concentrate my efforts, and we'll see how we get on. Right, and just run the fly down. I imagine we're going to pick up a few leaves today. It wouldn't be surprising. I think there's a chance these fish will be really tucked up against the bank on the far side here. So obviously you can see the bubble stream comes down and the bubble stream splits into two. So there's obviously a rock or something under the surface. It's just playing with the current. Yeah, I can see it now. I think I'll just try and get above where the rock splits it, and see if we can just fish down in front of the rock in the bubble stream. That's about right. It is deep here. This super diving shrimp is heavily weighted, and it's got a big tungsten bead on it. And I've got the other czech nymph as well, and it's not hit the bottom there, so must be getting down there or thereabouts. I'll just keep probing away. I remember this little run from a few summers ago. In fact, I czech nymphed it then. It's probably 2 or 3 years ago, and I had some cracking fish, probably 5 or 6 fish just out this tiny little pool. And I just touched the bottom there, so that's a sign that the nymph is getting down to where I want it. There's normally a big bush in summer here that comes right kind of overhangs the river, overhangs the pool, and it's all died away. So just makes presentation a little easier because we're not having to dodge the bush. Yeah, so a few summers ago I remember the most cracking day. I think the water level was quite low, and I presume what had happened is it had just basically cut the fish off, so they couldn't really get out of this little pool. So when I went through with my nymph, I just had a fantastic session, and I remember one of the brownies was phenomenal for this river anyway. Really good fish. Little bit of a stop there. I don't think that was a bottom. So if you've listened to the podcast before and heard me when I've been nymphing, I've got this luminous green braided loop at the end of the line that connects the leader to the fly line, and all I tend to do is put some mucilin grease on it so it floats nice and high, and I use that as my strike indicator. I don't tend to use a separate strike indicator when I'm nymph fishing, not because I'm against them in any way, just I find that the braided loop does a perfectly good job once it's greased. And I think for me it's always been the simpler you can keep things the better, so the less components I put into the onto the leader, the less knots, the less bits, the better really. Right, I'm just approaching the kind of very head of this pool now. So I really don't know how today is going to go. It's one of those in-betweeny days where we're not quite into what I would say is like prime, or for this river anyway, prime grayling time. I think it needs a bit of sharp weather on here really to really get them focused on the little pools. And so we'll just have to see. Oh, and we're in. Oh, it's come off. That was I think that was a little out of season trout actually. I didn't see it, but just by the way it thumped. So if it was, then I'm glad it came off. But, yeah, just it really gave me a thump. The grayling is normally a distinct kind of twist, a twist and a turn, and you don't get that kick and that you don't get that kick and thump as much with a grayling. Yeah, I was right in the head of the pool there. And a leaf. The dread at this time of year is you come out on the river just on that day where you get those first big gales of the autumn, and like at the minute there's lots of leaves on the trees ready to come down, and if you just happen to come out on the day where you get the gales, then fishing can be almost impossible. You know, the river's just absolutely carpeted in leaves. Right, I think I've done this little run here. I've had one on, so that's not a bad start. Right, so just moving down to this next little run. So the river's, I mentioned here, there's an island in the middle and the river splits into two. So this is basically the little two streams joining to meet again, and it forms a nice fast riffly bit leading to quite a long deep glide, which isn't really suitable for Czech nymphing, but I can certainly fish the riffly bit at the top. There's a dipper there just working away in front of me. Right. You can see how high the river's been recently with the way the grasses and the vegetation's all been pushed down here. It's really run through at a pace, but obviously it's dropped as quick as it's come up. Okay, so again the bubble stream here is running down the far bank, so that's where I'd expect the fish to be really. Just have a little look downstream where it's a lot slower, see if there's any rises, but I can't see anything. At this time of year, with the leaves just plopping into the river, what we often get is little sips around the leaves, and it's actually the fish coming up and feeding on the aphids and the green fly as they just drop off the leaf in the water, they come and sit round there. And this is a place I wish I brought my big 10 or 11 foot 3-weight Czech nymphing rod, because it's just a bit of an extra reach and it's really deep. I don't want to go too deep today. it's not the day to be taking a swim. In fact, if my memory serves me correctly, which it often doesn't, but if it does, the last time I fished here was actually when I took a swim. And let's not repeat that today, eh? Right, trees there above me, let's not get into them. I've always enjoyed this way of fishing. Strange, because I know for a lot of people this is like last resort, but I've always enjoyed czech nymphing. I just think it's sometimes a method that just throws up the unexpected fish. You know, that bigger trout or that grayling or several grayling where any other method isn't going to get a fly down to these kind of depths, so it can just throw up the odd surprise czech nymphing. I know when we're doing instruction and guided days, it's often the biggest fish, not that obviously fly fishing's about size, but it's often the biggest fish comes out to a very deeply fished nymph like a czech nymph. And it's quite an active and visual way to fish. You're always casting, and watching that loop come down. So your concentration's there, and it's right in front of you as well. It's live and direct, and the fishing around your feet. So when you finally hook into a fish, they obviously at close range, they really fight like stink. Yeah, all in all, it's a method I do enjoy. And on a slow day, because occasionally you're touching the bottom, you can always pretend that them little stops where your fly graces the rocks, you can always pretend that it takes, and it keeps you interested. And sometimes you don't know, do you, whether it's a fish or... Oh, that was a fish though. That was definitely a fish, because I felt the boom, 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 the kick on the end there when I struck into it. So that was very deep as well. Very deep. Didn't only move the braided loop, that fish, it gave me a little tug on the line as well when it took. So I've had that with grayling though a few times. You know, really often you think grayling are going to be very delicate takes, and you know, don't get me wrong, sometimes they are, but I've had some absolutely savage takes from grayling before, real like rippers. I've had a couple on when I've been salmon fishing as well, especially on the orangey kind of cascades and things like that. I've had some absolutely belting grayling, and they've absolutely clobbered the salmon fly. At first I thought, oh, I'm into a nice brownie or a sea trout here, and then you see a little flash of silver and you get excited thinking, oh, maybe it's a little silver grilse that I've got into, and then you sit back a bit and then think, well, I don't feel quite right this, and then you take another look and it's a huge great grayling. I've had that a couple of times, especially on the River Ewer. There's some wonderful grayling in there up in the Dales there. Right, keep plodding up. Nice bit to fish this. It's a fairly even current. And, you can imagine fish lying anywhere within this area here. There's all white bubbles all coming down fairly evenly. A bit of turbulence on the surface of the water, which is going to help disguise me. Keep moving up. I would say I'm getting into what I would consider to be the kind of hot spot now, which is the last 10 feet just before it shallows up too much. Oh, another little take then as well. The thing about grayling is they can really surprise you sometimes with where they live. One of the nicest grayling I've had out of this particular river was in about, I don't know, 10 inches of fast white water. I'd pretty much finished fishing, and like one more cast right in the white water at the top of the riffle, in water that, looking at it, most anglers would never ever put a fly in. And the line stopped, and I remember striking into it and just thinking, I can't believe it. And for the water, it was probably a couple of pounds, which is a good fish for this river. And it was a phenomenal fish for where it was living. But they do take you by surprise sometimes. I'm probably reaching about our limit here, but with these heavy nymphs on, I'm going to start hitting bottom. Just try and trundle it down the last little bit of a run here. Might try some just a little closer in towards my feet, actually. Nice and deep. There's a large dark olive there just hatched in front of me. Solitary fly making its way out. I don't know about you, but I've had, on the rivers I generally work on and fish on, we've not had the best year for hatches of flies this year. It's been pretty poor actually, and consequently the fish have been reluctant to come up, simply because there's no food there for them. So it's often a case of getting to the river and looking fairly dead, and when you're taking clients out, you've got to really reassure them there are fish there. It's a case of looking a bit at the watercraft and the way that the river's moving in the different riffles and bubble streams and streamy bits, and then getting the right nymphs on and getting down to the fish. And we've had an okay year catches wise, but nothing to write home about. But rising fish, it's been pretty poor, to be fair. We had really big floods at the back end of last year, really big, and river burst its bank, and there's a lot of silt deposited on the surrounding meadowland. And what that can sometimes do is obviously deposit a lot of your nymphs and eggs and invertebrates out on the surrounding countryside and leave them there as the water drops. So it's not unusual to have the odd poor year of hatches, and they soon come back, and there's enough eggs down there to hatch into new nymphs, and hopefully we'll have a better year next year. Right, we've got a nice slow pool here, but I'm just going to skip over this. It's dry fly water, this, not nymphing, and there's nothing rising. There's plenty of little fast runs to probe with the nymph here, so keep going down. So I've had, what did I have? A fish on in the top pool. Next pool down I've had a take and a couple of knocks, but it wasn't really on, it was on and off very quickly. I won't count it as a fish lost. So that's not bad going, at least there's one or two on the feed. I'm not staying out too long today, it's a short session. It's a surprising thing with this job. A lot of people will assume that I just go fishing every day, and it would be wonderful if I did, but I'm either teaching other people how to fish, or generally, if I'm not doing that, I'm just sat in front of a computer like everybody else does at work. Obviously there's a bit of a few bits of management and stuff to do, outdoor work and whatever, but you know, with the fly and tackle shop and the administration of the everything else, it's, you know, just like everybody else is. You're sat in the office in front of a computer, really. Right, the sun's bright now on the water, so I can't quite see what's going on. I might have actually just walked across what looks like quite a nice run, which is a bit stupid of me. I'll have a couple of chucks where I just walked across, just in case there's a daft fish down there that's I've not spooked. These grayling aren't the most spooky of fish, so there's always a chance there's one still down there, but very quick. Even though it's not too deep, it's so quick that it's bringing the nymphs down before they're hitting the bottom. No, it's worth a shot. Oh, the sun's really come out bright now. I can't see a thing. Reflection off the river is so bright that even with these sunglasses on I'm struggling. Right, grab the stick, squint and head down a bit. At least with this sunshine you can see every fly that's in the air, and there's no hatches. 2 or 3 midges and what looks like one maybe, yeah, one olive that's just come off in front of me there. There still could be a good hatch at this time of year. We can still have a good hatch of large dark olives in October on here. Wading's particularly tricky. It's quite fast water here, and it's a fairly upland style river, so there's not all of them, but a lot of the rocks are them round, slippy, snotty boulders that you don't grip on. There's a mix of that and kind of better gravel, but it's just enough to make it a little bit awkward in places. Oh yeah. I've not fished down here for years actually. I've been down here for a long time. It's funny when you see a particular pool or bit of water and it brings back a memory of a fish from many years ago, or where you fell in, or you know, something, or a pleasant day you had, and just you've forgotten about the pool, but then as soon as you see it, it just brings back all those lovely memories. If I remember right, this one is one of them places that looks so fishy, and I think I've very little out of it, but you can't help but go back. It's got absolutely everything. It's got a riffle at the top, a lovely streamy bit of water that deepens to a nice glide. It's got overhanging trees for shelter. It's got absolutely everything, but it's never seemed to hold much. But as ever, I'm going to have to give it a go because it just looks perfect. It smells lovely at this time of year. It's a beautiful bit of river this. There's loads of really high trees and the sun's just, imagine just kind of streaking through the branches, so you get those lovely sunbeams, and very peaceful. Not a soul about. I should name this the irresistible pool, because even though I never seem to catch much out of it, you just can't help but fish it. It opens up a bit further down. The sun on the water is absolutely perishing, and it's not too deep, so I think this is probably a slightly better option. I'll have a go with the Czech nymph, but it might be more suited just to fishing a nymph upstream here, but we'll see how deep it is. I'll tackle the top first with the Czech nymph where it's faster. See if we get anything out of there, and then I might just pop on a killer bug or something like that and fish a conventional upstream nymph. A slightly slower bit. You can see where I want to put my Czech nymph, just in the turbulent stuff, and a little deep turbulent channel right at the top. So I'll just have a go at that. So watch out for trees here. It's quite hard to cast, it's just you're just facing the wrong way around, and it's just nagging like little overhanging branches, as any good trout or grayling river has. Just the bits you want to fish, and just the bits where they stick out. Just about getting the fly working down. Oh, got it back. Right. I think we'll fish up the bottom of this run with a killer bug. It's too shallow for the czech nymph. And I'll fish this out, and then I'll see. I might have a wander further upstream. Right, you are. Tied on the killer bug, and I'm just going to go down and fish up the bottom. It's the bottom of the run is kind of quick, but not too quick, but slightly shallow and rocky. So you could fish it with any kind of nymph really, or a spider if they were moving about off the bottom a bit more, or you could even fish dries up here easily if they were rising. Something like a clink hammer would work nicely. Again, just focusing really on the likely runs, looking at how the white bubbles are moving on the surface of the water, which gives me an indication of what the current's doing and where the food will be moving. Picking up a few leaves now. I'm not fishing so far in such deeper water. I'm not cutting through the leaves, so picking up quite a few leaves on the nymph, but it's not too many as to make it impossible. Yes, there we are. Right under the trees, and it's off. That was a grayling. Oh well, that's a real result, because this is the irresistible pool has graced me with the take. I had to slot a cast basically between two tree branches, about 1.5 foot gap, and I managed to get it right through, and it took very, very, very keenly. Obviously the water's quite quick, so it just nipped out and grabbed it and turned, and really took it hard. That's lovely to get into a fish. I'm not bothered it coming off, so it was fairly close to the net, and it's always nice to get them in the net, but these days it's no great disaster if they come off. Of course, that makes a difference, because it was only £0.5 pound. If it had been a 2.5 pounder, I probably would be I'd be quiet for some time. Again, in the fast water though, in the really fastest part of the river that was in. I was out doing some instruction right at the back end of the trout season, and I was with a chap who'd started river fishing, and just not having any success at all, just not catching. And what it was basically, he was ignoring and just walking through all the good spots. So all the streamy bits of current and the riffles and all them nice fast bits of water where fish like to sit and just take the food as it zips past him. He was cutting all those out, thinking that wasn't suitable for fish, and then just fishing the very deep, slow pools. And as we all know in them deep slow pools, although you can see the fish, they can see you very, very easily, and it's tough fishing. And if you're just starting off, there we go, we're in again now. This is another grayling, and it's off. Let me check this hook. That was a better fish as well, actually. Well, 2 grayling out of this pool so far. Well, not out, they didn't end up in the net, but the hook feels fine. Marvellous hook, and just fishing across a bit like this as well, and those grayling, they twist and turn, and it doesn't take, I've got plenty of pressure on that, but it just managed to slip the hook. I'd not moved between the 2 fish really, so you know, where there is 1 grayling, there tends to be a few more, so hopefully there's a few more to be had just working up this run. But it's the killer bug that's provided the action so far. Oh, I missed that one. There must be a little shoal here just in this race. That's about where I want to be. Just keep probing away, probing away. Casting's tricky here. It's a side cast. I've only got the branches on the far bank are probably only 2 foot or so off the river, so I've got to slot my fly right under there and then get it to turn over and land. That's a better cast. Let's push up a bit now, I think. I've had 2 out of where I was stood there, so a couple of paces. That was a better fish, that second one there. It was still not a one to get you too excited, but it was more towards £1 than £0.5, shall we say. I think what I'm going to do since this killer bug seems to be getting a bit of a reaction, is actually fish back up the 2 pools I fished with the Czech nymph, and I'll run back up with the bug and then call it a day after that. We've just had a big gust of wind and a few hundred leaves have just ended up on the river. It's still in the shadow here, but looking up the river ahead of me, there's loads of big patches of leaves all lit up by the sun, and they've just collected on some of the bigger rocks and tiny little islands, and they're covered in leaves. It almost looks like someone's actually piled the leaves up in the river, just neat piles of leaves lit up by the sun. Oh, I think that was a take. I missed that one. I was distracted there, gazing upstream. That's been good, this pool. And now, in a couple of years' time, when I come down here next, instead of remembering it as the pool where I never get any action, I'll remember it as the pool where I lost two grayling, or you never know, we've still got 20 feet to go. It might be the pool where I lost 2 and caught 1. Let's keep moving up. Still a bit of good fishing to come. This fly line's oh yes, oh, he's off again. I don't believe it. I was just picking up to cast that time, and something grabbed it at the last second. It was on and off for a second or two. I was just about to say, I think this fly line's just about on its last last legs. It's just starting to not feel too slippy through the rings, but I've had it on for quite a while. But looking at it, it's got them. I've probably had it on 3 years now, and it's got so many little tiny little bits of dirt now that have just managed to ingrain themselves in the line. I confess I'm not a line cleaner. I know some people will get home from a session fishing and strip off a fly line and clean it all, and it will make them last a lot longer if you can do that, but I have to confess I'm not one of those. I might put a long cast out at the end of the day and just reel it back in through the water to clean it, but that's as far as I go. Exception being salt water. Obviously if I'm saltwater fly fishing, on the whole I'm staying away. So what I'll do with that generally is get back from a session and just get in the shower with my tackle basically. I'll get my reel and my rod and get in the shower and just give it a good rinse down and get all that salt water off. But just my freshwater gear, I have to say I'm not a cleaner. But don't let me set a bad example. I encourage you all to clean your fly lines, especially if they bought them from the shop. Clean them well. Right, 3 lost grayling. By far my most productive fly for grayling is the Sawyer's killer bug. It catches so many fish for me consistently, and it will take trout really well as well. It's such a simple, effective fly. It's a great fly if you are wanting to get into fly tying, because you only need 2 materials, some wool and some wire. You need a size 12 hook, and that's pretty much it. You can even tie it without a vice, because there's no thread. You just tie it with wire and wool. And the ones that we sell on the shop, we've actually I'm battling with a cloud of leaves here. Hey, thousands of them. There we go. That's just what I was talking about earlier. We've actually sourced, I don't know if you have a history of the Sawyer's killer bug, but Frank Sawyer invented it for catching the grayling with, and the story is really that, well, there's 2 stories. One, that the wool that he used was a darning wool from a manufacturer called Chadwick's. It was number 477, Chadwick's 477. He used that, and I think he used some reddish wire from a coil of a transformer. And there's variations on the story. One is that he went through lots of different wools and thought this was the best and most effective. And 2 was that he just grabbed whatever he had to hand, and it just happened to be some Chadwick's 477. Now, that's not made anymore. Hasn't been made for years, but is a famous wool within fly tying circles. And if you happen to come across it's presented on little bits of card, it's just wound around a piece of card. If you happen to come across an original card of Chadwick's 477, it's actually worth a small fortune now. Why fly tyers? Well, I understand why. It's because they want to feel like it's the absolute closest to the original possible. But people will spend an absolute fortune buying, for what all intents and purposes is just a cream wool, or creamy coloured wool, creamy grey. And we sourced like a substitute made specially to imitate the original as close as we can, and that's what our flies are generally made with. But if you want the original stuff, like I say, it's a small fortune. Right, I've left the irresistible pool, and I'm just going to work back upstream now and it's become very leafy. The wind has got up and we're now into a really leafy river. Hundreds and hundreds of leaves coming down. But I'm just going to fish up some of these runs that look really suitable for the killer bug and see if there's any more grayling willing to come and say hello. It'd be nice to see one under the net, but like I say, it's not all about that for me anymore when I'm trout and grayling fishing. Salmon fishing, different story, or a sea trout. I'm very, very keen to see that in the net, but just these little trout and grayling on these rivers, local rivers, doesn't pain me too much if we don't actually net them. Nagging wind now, it's coming downstream, so I'm on a 4-weight with fairly heavy fly and just having to give it a bit just to get through the headwind, but it's doable. I won't want to fish anything more than a 4-weight on here anyway. It's not, with this kind of casting in the size of the fishing here, it's about right. I could just see there's a fallen tree over the far bank, and just a little bit of current going around it. That looks perfect for a fish, perfect for a little lie there. So I'm just going to try and cover that if I can, which means I've got to venture a little bit further out into the stream, and it's really awkward wading here. Every step's a challenge. That'll do. Right. It's about right. I don't know how you've got on with fishing this year. I know a lot of people have been fishing, you know, with the virus, meaning that people have been locked down and wanting to just get out in the fresh air. I've definitely seen a lot more people wanting to get out fishing this year, but myself, I've barely got out this year. It's obviously been doing the podcast, and I've not done as many as those as I would have liked. I've had a stint at the saltwater in summer, which was nice. Caught some mullet and some bass. I've had one trip just into England for salmon, or salmon stroke sea trout, mainly sea trout I guess really, where I was. And that's really it. The years sped by and I've not fished as much as I'd liked, and it just works. Been tricky this year, just trying to sort everything out, so I'm hoping as soon as we get a little bit of stability back to actually get out and do a bit of fishing. Right, nice little run for nymphing again. What are we here, 20 foot across, almost a cliff on the opposite bank. Trees growing out of it, but very steep, kind of cliffy. It's like a bit of rock, bit of clay. And then that's where the deep water is running flush up to that steep cliff-like bank. And it's going to fish the quick stuff with the nymph. To go across stream really and just mend the line, I think, and let it come around. I'll try a few upstream casts first. Maybe I could. No, I'm going to have to do a reach cast, I think, over the opposite shoulder. There we go. It's always a puzzle just working out which of the many variations of casts is going to do the job, and in this case upstream with a reach back over my opposite shoulder, which repositions the line and lets it come down properly. Lovely. Coming down a treat that. I can't 100% say whether that was just the bottom or a leaf or a fish, but it did jab away very quickly. It wasn't shy, so it could well have been a fish just having a snap at it. Yeah, I think I might chalk that up as a take, that last one. Just looking at how deep it is there in the where the nymph was. Just into the top of this riffle, and then there's like another, almost the river just steps down in 2 or 3 sections, so there's another little riffle which I ignored coming down with the Czech nymph because it's too shallow, but it'll be perfect for this, just going back up it again. So we'll just have to have a run through that, and then there's that one top pool, and then that's me done. Oh, I think that was another take there. It shot away, it didn't just stop, it went upstream the line. It's amazing after 33 years of fishing, even for what are really just kind of small trout and grayling, how excited I get about a take. Again, that was right up in this fast stuff. They've all been in the fast stuff today. And not just when I say fast, I mean really fast. So not just like a glide, it's choppy white rapids really. Right, let's try this little run here on the nymph. There's a duck coming down the river there at full speed at head height, and it only saw me the last minute because I was stood still, and suddenly veered off. But I heard its wing beat as it went past. It was pretty close. I had that with a kingfisher the other day. I was just stood, and it nearly hit my legs. Right, let's drop 1 or 2 into this. This is, you can probably hear on the recording, it's fast turbulent water we get into here, so let's have a little go in here and see if there's anything going to say hello. Well, a couple more casts and I've run out of river here, so I've just got one more pool to go. Yes, we're in right at the top. God, it's fighting like stink this, and it is a grayling. There we are, it's in the net as well, lovely. Just lovely. Slipper back. I honestly thought that was a trout at first. It didn't really fight like a grayling at all. No twisting or turning, just a good old run and nice scrappy fight. Oh, it's probably about half a pound. Standard kind of stamper fish really for here, but again right in the head of the choppy, turbulent, riffly bit. Let's put another few in. There's actually it's not an old weir, it's almost like an old weir, but it looks half natural, whether it's just a very old broken down one, but it has formed a bit of a barrier, so there is a chance as fish move upstream here that they're going to be stuck just at the top here, right below these rocks. So with that one being there, I would imagine there's one or two, so I might just probe, just perk my interest a little bit and just probe very close to the rocks to see if there's a few hanging out there. It might have just been a loner. We got one in the net anyway. Yep, in again. Another grayling. Same place. Better fish this time. And this one is fighting like a grayling, twisting and turning. Ah, I've netted that one as well, a bit bigger. Alright then, the secret here is not to move. And just keep putting the fly in the same spot until you're convinced there's nothing else there. Oh, I've struck into a fish and missed it, and I've gone and snagged. I'm not going to get that off, I don't think. See if I can just wade across. I should be able to get that. Lovely. Yeah, I managed to get across and get my fly, so I'm back on. Now, is anything else going to be down there? Oh yes, there we are. Another one. Well, it's turning into one of them lovely grayling days where you just start to catch a few. Not big. They're all in exactly the same spot, so it's obviously a shoal down there. Let's move back a touch. Right, try again. Right, I'll start right at the bottom of the run and hit my way up. Not the most perfect nymphing water, but it's just quick enough, I think. Yeah, it's just quick enough to move the fly down, give it some movement, which is what we want. Current's not as easy here, it snakes round a rock. It's a bit of a washing machine going on down there, not the best lie for fish. It's a lot nicer towards the head of the pool where there's a nice straight line of current coming in, and that's where I'm going to expect a fish going on what we've experienced today. But it's always worth fishing these bits up, even if they don't look the best. Fish your way through instead of walk, and quite often you'll pick up a bonus fish. Right, I'm into the good stuff now. What I would say is the good stuff. That's a better cast. Alright, shorten this line a bit. Just getting a bit pokey on the cast in front. A few more large dark olives hatching off in front of me. Not seen a rise though today, and that would figure, given that I've worked through these pools and had plenty of interest but not seen a rise in fish, so they're obviously not interested in the odd olive or two today. They're tucking into the shrimp and maybe the nymphs from the olives as they're starting to ascend from the bottom. Probably the caddis as well, I would have thought, getting stuck into the odd caddis down there maybe. Well, that's me done. What a lovely morning's fishing. I can't remember what I did. Was it three in the net, something like that, and maybe 5 or 6 that are on and off to some degree. Smashing autumn morning after the grayling. Thank you so much for listening. If you need any information on our fly fishing tuition, it's www.peaksflyfishing.com, and for our premium fishing flies and tackle, it is shop.peaksflyfishing.com. Thank you and take care. Until next time, bye bye.
Thank you.